Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our much awaited RAC Biggest Weight Losers Challenge. This is our 4th edition, and we are thrilled to announce that this year's challenge has generated an overwhelming response from the participants. And we have received the highest number of registrations this year. This shows that people are ready and eager to begin their journey towards better health. So join us in our series of informative webinars, where our various experts will guide you to achieve your health goals. So with this, let us start our very first webinar. And today, we are honored to have none other than the Chief Wellness Officer of RAC Hospital Group, Professor Adrian Kennedy, as our first speaker. Professor Kennedy is a pioneer and a true visionary in the field of health and wellness. His wealth of experience of many years and the groundbreaking research have significantly contributed in promoting healthier lifestyles in the corporate workforce and in the society in general as well. Professor Kennedy is a multifaceted persona. He has a PhD in health studies from United States of America and also has degrees in business and law. He was founder director of Harvard Institute of Lifestyle Medicine. He was Director Executive of Health in Tata Steel and Managing Director of Apollo Life in India. He has received countless awards. Just to name a few, are the best health researcher in UAE, the best wellness company in GCC, etc. So today we are privileged to have Professor to speak and share his words of wisdom on today's topic, that is obesity, a health burden. So with this, I request Professor to start his presentation. Over to you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. M. And now I am going to share my screen. Am I viewable? Is this it? So friends, can you see me? I mean, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
You can. Thank you. Thank you for that response. It's remarkable. It's remarkable that that I got my first patent in 1994, and it was a computer software how to manage lifestyle. And I still need help to start my system and share. Nevertheless, I'm grateful to my colleagues who helped me out in these matters. Friends, as introduced by Dr. Madhurima, I'm Professor Kennedy, and I will be talking to you today on obesity, a general introduction. So obesity has 3 broad perspectives in its management. One, of course, is the lifestyle aspect, diet, exercise. The second is the medical aspect, medication that helps. And the third, of course, is surgery. I'll touch upon each of these so that our listeners can have a choice of how they would like to manage their obesity. So my talk today will be for about 45 minutes, and it will have three broad aspects. One aspect is, what is obesity? How is it evaluated? What is the difference between obesity and overweight? What is a normal weight? So this will be explained in a slide or two. Then I will touch upon an important aspect of what causes obesity. Is it genetic? Is it simply eating? Is it lack of exercise? Is it medication? What causes obesity is the second aspect. And then I will conclude with touching upon how to manage obesity. And as I've mentioned, there would be three broad aspects that I will touch upon. One is diet, one is your lifestyle, which is management of diet and exercise, which is important. And the second is the medical, and the third is the surgical aspect. Now, how do you define obesity, and how do you know, or how do you understand whether you are overweight or obese? This is usually done by the Metropolitan Life Insurance Scale, which was created in the 1900s because they wanted to identify who is overweight, in view of the fact that the impression in those days, it still exists, and it's a statement of fact, that individuals who are within the normal body range have less medical related ailments such as hypertension and diabetes, etc., than individuals who are overweight. So this was the first method, that is identification of weight against height. The Broca's index is a good indicator. It uses centimeters as a primary indicator, and you simply, if your height is 181, for example, which is my height, 181, I would simply minus 81, and the 100 kgs, I would simply minus 100. My mistake. I would simply minus 100, and then I would find my weight at 81. So 81 would be an acceptable weight. But my weight, regretfully, is 84. So technically, I am 3 kgs overweight. So that is the Broca's index. And then you have other aspects such as the body mass index. We will touch upon it, and others such the waist to height ratio and other such aspects, which we will touch upon as we go along. The waist to height ratio is an interesting methodology that we use on a day-to-day basis. You simply measure your waist, yeah, and the measurement of your waist, your height should be more than double of your waist in order to be of acceptable dimensions. We'll talk about all of these as we go along. So first of all, you have the height weight range. And to make it easier for our audience, I have put up a height weight range that was created by us. It is close to what the international standards are, but this is more relevant to Asian countries, including the Middle East, which is the population with which we are dealing. And therefore, you have your height and weight over here. You have an indicator over here of, let's assume we are talking about the bottom of the range, 182, which is 6 feet. Well, then if you are male, your weight should be in the region of 67 to 77. And if you are female, it should be in the region of 57 to 67. Broadly speaking, this is it. And in case it is beyond this range, then you would be overweight. And as indicated over there, if it is more than 20%, you would be obese. So this is a good indicator of whether you are overweight. You look at your height, you check the range. If it is beyond the range, you are overweight. And you will notice that the female is generally weighs less than the male at the same height. The female generally weighs less than the male at the same height, and the reason for this is body composition. The male has more muscle mass by virtue of his structure. The hunter-gatherer syndrome, he needed to go out and fetch food for the family, in a manner of speaking. So he had more muscle mass, and the female, who was resident at home to make the food and look after children, had less physical labor, earlier programmed for survival, and therefore had less muscle mass and consequently more fat. So we will talk about the difference in physiological structure between male and female also, but this is one way in which you can identify whether you are overweight. You take your height and weight range. And the interesting concept over here is that for every 1 inch against this scale, for example, I'm 6'1", I would add 1 kg to my acceptable weight range. That would be 68 to 78. So this is helpful. So this is the height weight range. Now, BMI is a concept that is widely used by our medical colleagues. I'm a health professional working in a hospital, but our medical colleagues, broadly speaking, would use the BMI chart. The BMI chart has a certain methodology by which you arrive at the BMI range, and then it evaluates, or it categorizes the whole human population into different ranges, as indicated here: thin to grossly or morbidly overweight. So if you were to look at this, you're quite thin if your BMI is 16. You become normal if it is between 18 to 25. You're overweight if your BMI is above 25. And you're obese if it is above 30. Now, you have indicators of above 40 also, and there are medical reasons why we have these ranges, and we will discuss that with you in due course in the slides that come over there. Now, this slide, which I do not want you to pay too much attention to, correlates your weight and height with your BMI. So it is a combination of the height weight range, which is used by the Metropolitan Life Insurance, or which is earlier used, or used more profusely by health professionals, and the BMI chart, which is used by medical professionals. So both these are brought together, and you have your height as your weight and your BMI. So you know your exact range. As I mentioned to you, my weight would be 84. My height is, assuming it is 180. So my weight would be 84, and therefore my BMI would come in the overweight category. That would be, my BMI is in the region of, well, it's actually 24, 25. So this is able to correlate these factors. Earlier, I spoke to you and mentioned that, keeping in mind the hunter-gatherer syndrome, or the hunter-gatherer activity, or the evolutionary growth of human activity, in which the male went out of the home to get food for the family, and the female remained at home and prepared and took care of the children. Keeping this in mind, the male has more muscle mass. Now, this is indicated over here. You notice the male has 18 to 23% body fat, generally speaking, in a standard structure. The female has between 23 to 30% body fat. So the female naturally has more fat than the male, and in many ways, this fat is health beneficial to the female for reasons of lactation and other such aspects. So the male, for example, has adipose fat tissue around the abdomen, which is cardiogenic, meaning that it puts you at risk for cardiac-related ailments as hypertension, diabetes, and other such factors. Even while the male has less weight, has less fat, the type of fat that he has puts him at higher risk, especially because of the testosterone and other hormones, which we will also touch upon during this discussion. The female, on the contrary, because of estrogen, regretfully would have, I shouldn't use the word regretfully, consequently would have more body fat tissue, but this is usually in the lower part of the body and therefore is not cardiogenic in a manner of speaking. And it is estrogen connected, and therefore it is in fact beneficial to the child and other such aspects for lactation. So let's put it to you like this, that adipose male tissue around the abdomen or the apple structure as opposed to the pear shape of the female puts you at higher risk in spite of the fact that you may have less fat. So the quantity of fat or the quality of fat is also relevant over here. But I would like to state quite emphatically that we are now talking about a situation where you should not have excess fat. The quality or quantity of type of fat is not relevant in this discussion. Over here, we are really talking about that you should not, if you are female, have, you must contain yourself around 23% fat. And if you're male, you must contain yourself around 18%. Now, how do we measure this fat? This fat, you use a caliper and you measure it in different areas of the body to find out the entire body distribution of fat. There are better ways to do this, but this is a simple classroom method. Now, over the years, I've had the good fortune of dealing with hundreds of thousands, and I mean that seriously, hundreds of thousands of humans. And over the years, I've discovered that you can very comfortably correlate 2 or 3 factors in the measurement of body fat. One of them is clearly that body fat in the abdominal area is the relevant factor. Clearly, above all else, it is the most relevant. And secondly, you could very easily correlate the measurement in terms of inches as opposed to percentage in terms of caliper. So you notice over there that 25 mm measurement by caliper is equivalent in a body structure to 25% body fat. So your caliper measure of 25% taken simply across the abdomen will give you a good indicator of the distribution of body fat or the acceptable risk of body fat or the acceptable risk for cardiogenic factors when it comes to the measurement. Okay, now you have, so obviously, so now you have the waist to hip ratio. Remember, you are taking a measurement on the waist. Okay, now you use that measurement and correlate it with your height. And you will find that in case your height is less than double of the weight, or I'll put it to you in a different way, if your waist should be half of your height. If your waist is more than half of your height, it means your waist is too large. Usually, abdominal distension could have many factors, but in this instance, we are usually talking about adipose fat accumulation around the abdomen, and that would put you at risk. So we have 3 measurements so far. One is the height-weight ratio, the second is the BMI, and now we've spoken about the body fat ratios. let's talk for a few minutes about, we've defined obesity. Now let's talk about causes. You know, in these days, there's a lot of discussion about genetics in several different areas. So it would only be appropriate to connect genetics with obesity. Now, if you were to look at the total human genetic structure, different studies tell us different numbers, but comfortably you could say that you have about 30,000 genes in the human body. Okay, 30,000. Now, which are the genes that specifically connect or cause obesity? Or the question to ask is obesity genetic? Oh, well, let me answer this question first from, are there any specific genes that deal with obesity? And you would be surprised to know that of the 30,000-40,000 genes that we have, almost 40 genes correlate with obesity. Almost 40 genes correlate with obesity. And these genes have been identified. So, if you were to get a genetic profile which indicates that you have a high propensity to obesity, then that is because of inheritance or family structures. You are born with this situation. The question to us then is that if I have the obesity gene, what do I do? The good news is that this can be reversed because your genes are impacted by your environment. And your environment is the food you eat, the activity you do. Now, if you moderate your diet and if you do some exercise, then obviously there will be an epigenetic effect on the genes that we are talking about, and they will not flourish into obesity. So, you need not use the excuse of genetics for being fat. You can moderate it with your coach or medical professional's help. So genetics has a role to play, which can be reversed. You then have family environment. Family environment is what you grow up with. And these are the habits that you will carry through to for the rest of your life. So the type of food you eat, the quantity of food you eat, the time you eat, and all of these factors will play a role. For example, vegetarian versus non-vegetarian. Obviously, the non-vegetarians will have more fat in their food. When I say fat, I mean animal fat in their food than the vegetarians. The vegetarians will have more fiber. And therefore, because it has more fiber, these are superfoods that keep you slim. Obviously, there is an impact of your family environment. It will impact you. For example, in Europe, the last meal is at about 6 or 7 supper, 6 at 7 in the evening. But in Asian countries, the last meal is 10 o'clock at night. And that meal will convert into fat, whereas the meal eaten at 6 or 7 will be utilized as energy. So therefore, family environment has a role to play. I've already explained male versus female. The female is structured to have more fat than the male. And as a consequence, more females tend to be obese than males, even while the male is heavier and fatter. The human population-wise, more females are obese than males. So we are running, for example, a weight rack weight loss challenge, and the highest male that we have is I believe 262 odd kgs, and the highest female is in the region of about 176 kgs. But the number of females will probably exceed the number of males in terms of general obesity. you know, as you get older, unfortunately, your metabolism reduces. The reason why it reduces is because your muscle mass reduces also. Your muscle mass reduces very often because of less physical activity. It's all a cycle. So you get old, you do less activity, your metabolism reduces, but often what does not reduce after the age of 40 is your caloric intake of food. And therefore, the food that you eat, your metabolism is low, the food that you eat is converted into fat. Now, so is it inevitable that old people will get fat? No, it is not inevitable. It is a strong probability. It is a normal biological process, but it can be reversed if you keep your muscles firm, if you do your exercise activity. So everything that is a problem has a solution. Then you have eating habits. I mentioned probably the most important one. The number of calories that you eat is relevant. Keep it less. I will give you the formula for that. The type of food that you eat is important. Vegetarian food tends to have a higher ratio of metabolism and a lower level of fat. So a level of fat gain. So vegetarian is better than non-vegetarian, broadly speaking. But I think the most important rule that I did mention is the time at which you eat your food. Any food eaten during the day will be converted into energy, and any food eaten late at night will be converted into fat. So the timing that you eat your food is relevant. That comes under eating habits. And then hormones. We'll talk about hormones in a slide or two later. Prosperity or poverty. This is a no-brainer. We do know that the richer you are, the fatter you get, and the sicker you get. We know this. And if you look at our own great country in the UAE, where prosperity is abundant, so is obesity abundant. And then, of course, we have medication. The more medication you take, the higher the probability that you will put on weight. There are specific medicines, insulin, for example, and others, estrogen, for example, and others that actually that make you put on weight. But I'm not suggesting that you don't take these medications. You have no choice but to take these medications. But your doctor will be able to advise you that your weight gain is because of certain medications, and he will give you the most appropriate medications of that. So the causes of obesity could be genetic, it could be your family environment, male or female, age, your eating habits, prosperity, etc. And we need to look at hormones. Now, hormones are those chemicals in the human body that impact different aspects of human function. I mentioned insulin and I mentioned estrogen. These are fat-making hormones. They actually they actually convert food into fat. So you need to keep these in mind. And then alternatively, and to your advantage, there are also fat-burning hormones. Now understand this. You cannot manage the hormones in your system. You are born with them. Of course, it is true that we do take medication for thyroid and all these other hormones. It's true. But if you were to look at it as a biologic structure, then there are certain hormones within the human body that help you or that promote the body getting fat. And there are certain that promote increased metabolism that burns fat. So you have over here thyroid. The thyroid controls metabolism. You have adrenaline, which increases the heart rate, respiratory rate, and so on. You have testosterone hormones, muscular density, and you have exactly the opposite, estrogen, which is a fat-making hormone, and so on and so forth. Now, if these hormones are God-given in a manner of speaking, or available from birth as a manner of speaking, then what do we do? How do we manage these? Everything, mostly everything, can be managed by your environment. Hormone regulation by eating a balanced diet, by exercising regularly, reducing simple sugars, managing stress. Alcohol would come under the complex of simple sugars. So hormone regulation is like health regulation. They all come together. Simply have a good lifestyle, eat a balanced diet, eat the right foods at the right time, do your exercise on a day-to-day basis, and your hormones will regulate themselves. Of course, you must meet your doctor, who will give you more specific advice than I am suggesting. So, we are talking about the inevitability of some of us being overweight. What is our solution? We've spoken about the definition, we've spoken about the cause. Now let us speak about management. How do we manage obesity? As I mentioned to you earlier, there are three methods: surgical, medical, and lifestyle. And all these methods are very clearly defined, and all these methods are very strongly regulated. For example, not everyone can go for surgery. And sometimes surgery is necessary. Unfortunately, we don't go for it. So here we have a situation of surgical weight management with the BMI of above 40 to 50, the BMI of above 40 to 50, which is the individual is double their body weight. Now, my body weight is meant to be 80 kgs. If my body weight becomes 160 kgs, then I need to pause and ask myself, do I have any morbidities, any illnesses? Do I have blood pressure? Do I have diabetes? Do I have arthritis? Do I have any of these morbidities that go with obesity? Now, if my body weight is double of the standard ratio, and I have hypertension and diabetes, and these things are not being managed by the medicines that I have, I can simply ask myself a serious question. Am I going to live with this obesity and these comorbidities for the rest of my life? Or do I look for solutions? Certainly, you can look at medical solutions, but medical solutions unfortunately, medical solutions come at a lower category, which means your BMI is between the range of 30 and 40. In this instance, your BMI is far in excess. You may need more radical measures. Coming back to surgery. So therefore, you have the option of bariatric surgery. You have the option of liposuction. You cannot forsake lifestyle change. Whether you go for surgery, whether you go for liposuction, you still have to continue with your diet, exercise, and lifestyle activity. But more of this subject later in the program when we talk to specialists in bariatric surgery. But keep in mind that there is the most efficient level at which surgery may be the best means that you require to manage grossly morbid, life-threatening obesity. You may need to take radical measures, and surgery could be a life-saving consideration. Now, if your BMI is above 30, you are clearly overweight, grossly overweight, but you may not be morbidly overweight. And at the same time, you have comorbidities, hypertension, diabetes, hypercholesteremia, arthritis, so on and so forth. Then, beyond the medication that you are taking, you may want, your doctor may advise you medical management of obesity. Then there are 2 or 3 different types of medications that you could consider. Your medical doctor will be able to tell you far more precisely what these are, but from a general perspective, he may prescribe a type of medication that results in you eating less food. Every time you eat, first of all, you may not feel hungry. Secondly, whenever you eat, you may feel uncomfortable, nausea, vomiting, etc. And therefore, you would prefer to eat less frequently and lower quantities. They may give you medication that increases metabolism. When you increase metabolism, you burn more energy, you reduce more fat. So you could have medication, stimulants, for example, that would help over there. He may prescribe medication that reduces food absorption, which means most of the food that you eat is absorbed by the human body. As you get older, 50% of the food is not absorbed. But there are medications which even at a younger age will reduce the absorption of food. And then you have other types of medications. So you do have, but again, this is for your doctor to prescribe, and your lifestyle, activities of exercise and diet will remain the same. The most important area, or the primary area, or the area that comes along with medication and comes along with surgery is lifestyle. And I'm going to talk about lifestyle very quickly in 2 aspects: nutrition and exercise. A few basic slides. Nutrition comprises of the food groups: cereal, vegetable and fruit, milk, oil and sugar, and the quantities in which these are to be eaten is given. So these are your basic foods. 60% of cereal, we know that it should be less processed, so that is important. Vegetable and fruits, we know, have high levels of fiber. This is broadly speaking a balanced diet. Technically, you're looking at carbohydrate, protein, fats, macronutrients and micronutrients, and these are explained over here. But our next few sessions will have this topic, so we really need not pay attention to this. What we need to concentrate on is metabolism and calories. The food you eat, the activity you do. That's it. The food you eat, the activity you do, and how do you balance these things? All foods that you eat, all foods except water have calories. All foods. Now, if you want to know how much each food contains in terms of calories, you need a ready reckoner, a book. So it's not necessarily the easiest way to manage your life by counting calories. But this is only for your information. All foods contain calories. The good news is that all activity is also measured in calorie burn. So you eat food, 100 calories, you may walk for 1 hour and burn 100 calories. So this is how you balance your food intake with activity output. So the different type of activities that you do, from simply walking to running and everything in between, will burn so many calories per hour. Now, normally we eat at every meal about 500 calories. At every meal, 350 to about 600 calories. The interesting thing to note here is that 1 hour of intense activity or 1 hour of moderate exercise activity will burn between 300 to 600 calories. So exercise activity and diet have to be balanced between them. So here is what calorie balance is. in a developing country, we eat about 2,500 calories a day. In a developed country, it could even be 3,500. Now, of this, the good news is that your basal metabolic rate or the human body will automatically utilize 50 to 60% of those calories for day-to-day activity. Your heartbeat, your respiration, circulation, defecation, thinking, all of these burn calories. And that will take half the calories that you eat in a 2,500 calorie diet. Also, beyond lying in bed, we are doing other things. We go to the office, we go to the mall, we play with the children, or if you are a child, you are running around. This activity will burn approximately, on an average, about 100 calories per hour. So beyond your basal metabolic rate, you are burning through normal day-to-day physical activity 100 calories per hour, which will then bring your calorie utilization to about 2,000 calories. On the other side, you have a 2,500 calorie intake. You have a 2,000 calorie utilization. Your excess is 500 calories. Now, this 500 calories can be considered in 2 or 3 ways. One is 500 calories is normally a meal. And secondly, 500 calories into 7 is 3,500 calories at the end of a week. 3,500 calories is 1 pound or half a kg, which then means that if you do not do exercise, the potential to put on weight is approximately 1 pound per week or 2 kgs per month. So the solution then is to do your exercise. If you do your exercise, you will burn the extra 500 calories and you will maintain your calorie balance. Now, we all talk about diets and there are different types of diets. I will take it in 1 second. Children, broadly speaking, without medical consent, do not put your child on a diet. Do not. A child is growing, they need their nutrition. And unless your doctor does not prescribe a weight loss diet, do not put the child on the under a diet. Okay, children require that energy. But the rule then is that children must have activity. If you say that you are not going to put your child on a diet, I insist on 2 hours of physical activity, whatever it is, running, playing, games, anything. For adults, it's exactly the opposite, and this is where it gets confusing. Adults, cut your food down by half because you've already reached a level by which you are sedentary. So while children might eat 2,500, 3,000 calories, an adult should not eat more than 1,500 calories. Now, 1,500 to certainly less than 2,000. If you were to take a meal at about 500 calories, then 3 meals would give you about 1,500 calories, absolutely basic. But we have far more than that. We have fried foods, we have hamburgers, we have ice cream, we have cakes, we have so many different things. So a meal is normally 700 calories in these modern days. 3 meals will give you 2,100 calories, which is immediately 500 calories in excess of your requirement. Remember, what is the rule? I repeat it. You must have, well, the rule then is 1 hour of exercise activity, or alternatively, skip your nighttime meal. Beyond the normal diet, there are therapeutic diets, which I will not touch upon at all. These are medical diets, which your doctor will support you with. But the topic that I will talk about is popular diets. Whether it is the Atkins diet or the Pritkins diet or the Israeli Army diet or the General Motors diet, there are new diets that come up every day, dear friends, and I can tell you this, that the best diet in the world is clearly the Mediterranean diet on the one hand, and you have the other diet, which Dr. Wilku will remind me about what it is. It is I forget the name at this point in time, but clearly the Mediterranean diet. Yeah, Dr. W, do you remember the name of the diet? The blood pressure, there is some diet, we will remember the name as we go along. But the diet that I'm recommending is the Mediterranean diet or the raw food diet. This is the diet, the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is a diet that is completely balanced. It's completely balanced. It has high quantities of complex carbohydrates. It has sufficient fruit and vegetable. It has moderate intake of oil, unsaturated oil. It has moderate to low intake of fish and poultry. It has tremendous physical activity. A low diet of less than 1,500 calories with sufficient 1 or 2 hours of activity is, in a few words, what the Mediterranean diet is. A new diet that has come up, which is, in my mind, difficult to follow, but clearly of great value, especially to individuals above the age of 50 who have comorbidities, is the raw food vegetable diet, the vegan diet. The raw food vegan diet, or even the cooked vegan diet, which has only vegetables, and that is an excellent diet. Do not imagine that it gives you less protein. It does not, because you have certain vegetable foods that have sufficient protein, good protein without fat, grams, lentils, dals, all of them are excellent. So I'm putting two diets on the table for you. The Mediterranean diet if you're not vegetarian, and if you're vegetarian, the raw food vegetable diet. Fast food versus, please, it's simple. Avoid sugar, salt, fat, oil, processed food, and commercial food. Avoid these. What is left is abundantly good, healthy food, cereals, vegetable fruit, dairy products, meat, sufficient fluid. Now I have to get on to exercise. I have run out of time. There is nothing more beneficial than exercise. I will talk about it in 3 concepts: exercise, frequency of exercise, and the type of exercise you should do. Benefits. Obesity clearly is one of the benefits. Obesity, strengthening of the muscles, strengthening of the bones, reducing anxiety, reducing stress, strengthening the heart, improving circulation, reducing diabetes. Friends, you could not talk about a better medical pill than exercise. What are the components of an exercise program? Physical activity is the #1 component, and then divided into stamina, strength, and flexibility. Stamina, walking, jogging, cycling, swimming. Half an hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour of this is absolutely essential. It will improve your heart, improve your circulation, reduce your hypertension. Walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, and do it according to age. If you are below the age of 40, jog. If you're between the ages of 40 to 50, swim. Go for a walk. Go for cycling. If you're above the age of 60, walk. Go for a swim. Keep your exercises moderate to your comfort. Do not overdo these things. But 1 hour of aerobic exercise to improve your heart is essential. These are different exercises for strength. Use your own body weight to improve your strength. You will have a complete session on exercise, so I will not go into these details. I will simply say that your body weight, my body weight of 80 kgs, I can use it to strengthen my own body by doing these simple exercises. And then more advanced systems is weight training, especially for the younger groups. And friends, do you know that in the weight loss challenge this year, 80% or 70% of the youngsters are below 40 years of age? You must do weight training. If you do weight training, you will develop muscle. If you develop muscle, you will reduce fat. Jointly, they account for 100%. Increase your muscle mass by doing weight training. Joint rotation and yoga. Yoga is, you may imagine that yoga is not a very active form of exercise, but it is an internal form of exercise. We were talking about hormones. Yoga regulates the hormones. By virtue of its various movement, it massages the entire endocrinic system. What is fit? Fit is frequency, intensity, time. Fit, F-I-T, frequency, intensity, time. F is frequency, 6 days a week. Intensity is moderate. Time is 30 minutes to 45 minutes per day of exercise. Moderate rather than intense. Moderate exercise you will enjoy, it will improve your health. It is easy to do, it burns fat, it decreases hunger, and so on. Intense exercise is for sportsmen friends. It is not for us. It is not for old people. It is not for our colleagues who are obese. Moderate exercise done daily will do you far more justice. Finally, a few tips, just 5 or 6 tips. 1, physical activity and dieting is a lifetime commitment. Number 2, the calories you eat per day should not exceed 1,500. So, what is the solution? The solution is the day you do not exercise is the day you should not eat your last meal, which is dinner. Simple. You'll contain your 1,000 calories over there. Waist measurement or weight measurement should be taken not more than once a week. Eat complex carbohydrates. Eat green food and vegetables. Eat a light dinner and exercise every day. And with that, friends, my apologies for taking more time than I should have, and thank you. Is Doc W, are you saying something? I can't hear you.
Doctor, how can we join the competition, please?
My voice is there? Yeah. Am I audible?
I can't hear anything over there. Yes, Doc W.
Okay. I'm very sorry. Some technical glitch in my system, so I was not able to. Still, I'm not able to hear, but I'm able to speak now. Thank you, Professor, for a wonderful session. As usual, being a pioneer, you have given a lot of information way. I think people might have taken it. So there are many questions coming up in my WhatsApp also, in the chat box also. Professor, as soon as you started the topic and you were talking about the structural obesity and bones and skeletal system, there was first question which came up was no, I have lost that. What about the bone density and bone load? Is it connected to the overall obesity? Because you can't change even if you do weight reduction, you can't change your bone density.
Oh, well, let me give you this. Let me give you this answer to the best of my knowledge. It is commonly believed by most people that bones are heavy. Bones are not heavy. Your bones weigh less than, your bones weigh in the region of above, a little above 10% of your total body weight. So if I were to weigh 100 kgs, my skeletal weight would be around 12, 13, 14 kgs at best. So bones are heavy is an excuse or is a wrong belief that we have when it comes to obesity, number one. Number two, as you get older, the minerals in the bones are depleted, and therefore you get osteoporosis, which is weak bones. It has also been found that obese individuals have a higher level of depletion of minerals from the bones, and therefore they are also prone to higher levels of osteoporosis. So therefore, what would my answer be to this question? There is such a thing called bone loading. Whenever you exercise, you load the bone. Whenever you load the bone, the body is automatically programmed to absorb minerals and calcium from the body. So if I were to go for a walk, every step I take is loading my body by 50 or 60 kgs because I'm carrying my body weight. With every step that I take, my body is programmed to absorb more minerals. Therefore, the great benefit of exercise is not only does it strengthen the muscle, it also strengthens the bones. Yes, and therefore to that extent, if I've answered the question, thank you, sir.
Yeah. That was a good answer, sir. The first question after that was asked by Mr. Sarfraz. What is the best time for doing exercise? Can we do an exercise after meals? This is a very common question. People ask, when should we do?
Okay.
Before meal, after meal?
The best time to do an exercise is the best time for you. Let me explain this. If it is convenient for you to do exercise in the morning, please go ahead and do it. If it is convenient for you to do exercise in the evening, please go ahead and do it. Now, what are the benefits or what is the difference between morning exercise and evening exercise? I would prefer personally, and I talk from a technical perspective, that morning exercises should be less physically robust, meaning walking, swimming, low-level cycling, etc. in the morning is good because you have gotten out of bed with a low heart rate, and therefore you do not want to push your heart rate up too high, too fast. You don't want to do that. So if you are a sports person, it's a different story. But if you are an overweight individual, or if you are an individual who's exercising simply for reasons of good health, then morning exercise can be of a moderate level. However, it doesn't mean that you cannot go for a run or a jog, but only after you do a complete warm-up. Evening exercise can be vigorous because in the evening, your heart rate is already pulsing at 80 to 90 beats per minute. When you go for exercise, the body is already warm and can easily go into higher levels of activity, which includes running, playing games, tennis, hockey, and all these other games, including weightlifting. Now we come to the point of before meal and after meal. Never go for an exercise program on an empty stomach. Never. You have to have a cup of tea or a fruit or something that will give you at least 45 to 100 calories of energy. A cup of tea will give you about 40 calories. One fruit will give you about 50 to 60 calories. That is good enough. You will not get hypoglycemic. If you wish to do exercise after a meal, remember that the blood distribution for digestion and muscles is constant. It doesn't change. But if you include exercise activity while the digestive process is happening, then there is a high probability of injury being caused to you. And this injury could have very fatal consequences. So therefore, my best advice to you is, after a light meal, 1 hour after a light meal, you can do exercise. 2 hours after a heavy meal, you can do exercise. When I say 2 hours, what I mean is I need the food to move out of the stomach into the alimentary canal. Then you can exercise. So simply put, exercise anytime to your convenience. Please have something light anytime before you exercise, especially if you're diabetic. Anything light before you exercise. In case you have eaten a meal, it's a light meal, which is a cup of soup or vegetables. 1 hour after, you're welcome to your exercise. After a heavy meal, within 2 hours, heavy meal, light exercise, light meal, heavy exercise. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. It was expected an answer like this from a professional sportsman who represented the country. Thank you, Professor, for this wonderful answer. And there is one more question. Do thyroid medicines increase weight? I think Mar is having thyroid problem, and she's specifically asking about any specific diet for thyroid patients. So, Professor, if you want to add to it. Anyhow, dietitian will be talking about these problems also, and the endocrinologist will be also talking about these problems. Professor, your thoughts, please.
You're talking about thyroid and diet?
Thyroid medication, thyroid medication, do thyroid medication increase the weight? I think she must be asking, is thyroid increasing the weight, not the medication?
Dr.
And
W,
is there any specific
I
weight?
really
Yeah.
would be, I really would be out of my license and my depth if I were to try and answer this question. The reason is that, you know, there's hypothyroid, there is hyperthyroid, there are so many aspects, and there's a medical aspect. I would beg to leave this to my colleagues who will answer it in due course, sir.
Yeah, sure. I think this will be the best way to say it, because endocrinologist is the best person to answer this.
Yes.
Third question, Parampreet has asked. Generally, people say gym exercise is not effective to reduce weight. And what gym exercise are helpful to reduce weight, according to you?
Okay, now this is a fabulous question, and I'm afraid I will confuse you more than I will give you clarity. Friends, understand this. Answer number one: is weight training good for you? The answer is yes. Weight training is good for you. It will help you to put on muscle. It will help you to reduce fat. So it is good for you. Now, here is the confusing part. When you do weight training and you put on muscle, you will put on weight. You will lose fat, but you will compensate it by weight. So it brings us to the next point. Measuring your weight is not the only way to measure success. If you are grossly and morbidly obese, above 30 BMI, by all means, you go ahead and concentrate on reducing your weight. But if you are between 25 and 30 BMI and you are overweight, but at the same time not grossly and morbid, when you do exercise, you will put on weight, but you will lose inches. You will turn slimmer, but you will put on weight. It's complicated. So my best advice to the person who asked this question, please go ahead and do weight training. It is good for you. Please do it. It is good for you.
Professor, there is another question which just popped up in the WhatsApp, and it's similar to that. So there are many formats of exercise. what do you suggest the best gym exercise or weight training exercise to lose weight? It's connected. Just now you answered, but it's connected to that. Various formats of exercise.
Yeah, there are several types. There are several types of exercises that you can do and several systems of exercise that you can do. But broadly speaking, they form into 3 or 4. Well, I'll put it to you like this. There is the cardio exercises that you can do. Cardio. I don't know why cardio is referred to as a gym exercise, for the simple reason that cardio can be done outside, walking, jogging, cycling, swimming. But cardio can also be done on a treadmill when there is a lot of snow outside. Okay, so that is one aspect. There is cardio, then there is training. There is gym training, okay, where you use different types of instruments, the dumbbell, the barbell, and all these other machines. That's the second type. And then there are different systems of exercise in which you do circuit training, which means that you do a series of 10 different types of exercise, and then you repeat it for the second cycle and repeat it for the third cycle. And then there is the other system on which you do only arms and upper body one day, abdominal and back on the second day, lower limb and legs and calves on the third day. So to answer your question, there are different forms of exercise. My best recommendation to you, sir, is this. If you are wanting to lose weight, you should simply do a standard exercise program, which means you start with the upper body, you do the shoulder press, then you do the bench press, then you do the curl, then you do the forearm curl, then you do the back extension, then you do the abdominal extension, then you do the squat, then you do the calf raise. All of this with weights. That means you are doing the entire body. Now, how much and how frequent? You should do for the upper body, you should do half your body weight. If my body is 80 kgs, take a 40 kg body weight and do 8 repetitions or 12 repetitions. For the lower body weight, equivalent to my body weight. If my body weight is 80 kgs, I take 80 kgs and I do exercise for the lower limb, and I do, instead of 12, I do 25. Any exercise more than 25 means that the weight is too light. Any exercise more than 12 means that the weight is too light. If you cannot do 12, it is too heavy. So simply put, a standard program that activates every muscle group in the body, and there are only 6 muscle groups. There is the arms and shoulders, there is the chest, there is the abdomen, there is the back, there is the thigh, there is the calf. Do exercises for these 3 sets, 10 repetitions each, and that is done.
Yeah, that was a comprehensive answer, Professor. I will take 2 more questions. Benny has asked, sir, can you suggest how much water should we drink per day?
You know, there are many different schools of thought on this, but the biological school of thought is simply this: as much as you excrete, that much you take in. Okay, now, normally you would excrete about 1 kg of water. Again, it all depends. In winter, you would probably urinate far more. In summer, you would probably urinate far less, but you would perspire much more. Okay, so my best advice to you, sir, is this. If you wish to have 8 to 10 glasses of 200 ml glasses of water, that is 1.5 kgs, it is perfect. If you go to 2 kgs of water, it is excellent. 1 kg of water is your minimum. 1 liter of water is your minimum. 2 liters of water is optimal. Anything above that is unnecessary. And then again, it depends on your climate. In a cold climate, I would go at less. In a hot climate, I would go at more.
Yeah,
Between 1 and
that
2,
was a good-
1 and 2 liters, sir.
Yeah. Sir, there is one more question which just came morning, because this was a question asked during the participation when they came for the weighing at our facility at RAC Hospital. So the same person has asked the same question again. Is more sweating during exercise an indicator of fat burning? This is very interesting question, actually.
Interesting is correct, but the answer is no. Let me tell you this. If you exercise in a non-air conditioned facility, you will sweat more automatically. So sweating is related to activity and temperature. Activity and temperature. If you exercise in an air-conditioned gym, you will not perspire that much. But what is the benefit of perspiration? The benefit of perspiration is the removal of toxins in the human body. And therefore, I would honestly prefer that you perspire. Okay, so to answer your question, perspiration is an indication of activity or metabolism in the body. It increases if the temperature increases. It reduces if the temperature is less. It is not a measure of exercise. It is a measure of exercise and temperature.
Yeah, just
But please exercise and perspire. It feels beautiful.
true. Just now he's listening to your answer. He has asked, that's the reason why then the sauna bath is promoted like to have a weight loss.
I don't know who recommended the sauna bath for a weight loss anyway. So the sauna bath will reduce your water content. It will not, it will marginally reduce your fat, but no, the sauna bath is not a tool for weight loss, sir. It is a tool for reducing toxicity in the human body. It is a tool that is used in the West for arthritis and spondylosis and keeping the body warm and things like this. The sauna is not an instrument for weight loss. Exercise is the instrument for weight loss. Okay, sir, please keep that in mind.
Yeah, there is one more question which I think we should leave it for next session. Ms. Ruba will be talking about, our specialist dietitian will be talking about the keto diet. So for now, this is all covered. So Professor, over to you.
I'm through. Somebody has to say thank you to me, otherwise I'm through.
Dr. M, please, over to you.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor, for this very informative and insightful session today. You have answered the many queries of the participants, and those were the valid questions. Everybody gets those confusing theories they heard from so many resources, and you have cleared them up. So thank you so much. Thank you very much for your session. And thank you, Dr. Bilku, for taking up the questions and answering them. Thank you so much. And thank you, participants, for listening to our webinar. Thank you to all.
Thank you. Thank you